Yeah, it's Jimmy on the rise. What you know about that? From HK streets to the world. No cap. Money moves, good vibes, keep the real ones close. Unscripted every day, that's the life I chose. Turn the beat up. Jimmy Unscripted.
Alright, quick one this week. These are 3 news stories from the past few days that people are seriously divided on. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I just want to lay out both sides clearly. And then I want to hear from you. Let's start with the one that shocked a lot of people. So first up, Greenland. In January 2026, Donald Trump escalated his push for the US to take full control of Greenland, which is currently self-governing under Denmark. This time, it was serious. After high-level meetings in Washington, both sides publicly said there was a fundamental disagreement. Trump's team made it clear this was no joke, and Denmark responded just as firmly. Trump says Greenland is critical for US national security. He argues the island is essential for a new missile defense system called the Golden Dome, and that full American control is necessary to make it work. Denmark and Greenland responded very clearly. Greenland is not for sale. They say the people living there have the right to decide their own future, and they do not want to become American. As tensions increased, other NATO allies raised their military presence in the Arctic. This was meant to signal support for Denmark and to defend Greenland's sovereignty. Supporters of Trump say this is simple realism. They argue the Arctic is becoming a new geopolitical battleground, and if the US does not secure Greenland, Russia or China eventually will. They also point to Greenland's rare earth resources, which are critical for technology, energy, and defense. From this view, control today prevents bigger threats tomorrow. Critics strongly disagree. They say pressuring a NATO ally undermines trust and sets a dangerous precedent. They argue national security should not come at the cost of another country's sovereignty. So here's the question. Should national security ever override another country's sovereignty, especially when that country is an ally? Next story is about AI and China. In January 2026, the United States approved the sale of advanced AI chips made by NVIDIA to China. This reversed a total ban from the previous administration. The chip approved is NVIDIA's H200. It is extremely powerful, just one step below the most advanced AI chips currently available in the US. The approval came with strict conditions. The US government takes a 25% cut on every sale. China cannot buy more than half the volume sold to US customers. There is another rule. Third-party labs must verify that these chips are not used for military purposes. On paper, the US says this keeps the technology under control. Here's the twist. Shortly after approval, reports suggested Beijing told Chinese companies not to buy the chips, possibly using the issue as leverage in wider trade negotiations. Supporters say this is smart strategy. They argue China will build AI no matter what. So it is better for US companies to stay central to the global AI supply chain. They also point to money. That 25% cut means billions flowing back to the US instead of pushing China to develop its own alternatives faster. Even Jensen Huang has argued that cutting China off completely only speeds up competition and weakens long-term US influence. Critics are alarmed. They argue the H200 is still powerful enough to boost military and surveillance AI. And once the chips are inside China, real enforcement is almost impossible. They also say this contradicts a tough stance on China. To them, it looks like short-term profit being chosen over long-term national security. Next story is about immigration and power. In January 2026, Donald Trump announced the US would stop all federal funding to sanctuary cities and the states that support them. At the same time, the federal government launched Operation Metro Surge. Thousands of agents were sent into cities, including Minneapolis. During one operation, a legal observer named Renee Good was fatally shot. This incident sharply escalated tensions across the country. After this, Minnesota and Illinois filed lawsuits against the federal government. They are trying to block the raids and funding cuts. At the same time, the administration ended temporary protected status. This affected hundreds of thousands of immigrants, including many Somali families. Supporters of the crackdown say this is about law and order. They argue sanctuary policies protect criminals and block cooperation with federal authorities. They also argue about funding. If states refuse to follow federal law, they say taxpayers should not be forced to pay. Critics say the federal government is abusing its power. They argue these operations violate state authority and destroy trust between communities and police. Local leaders warn that fear stops people from reporting crimes. They say aggressive raids make cities less safe, not more safe. Opponents also say the funding cuts are political retaliation. They believe immigration policy is being used to punish certain states. So here is the question. When federal and local laws clash, who should decide how a community is policed and funded? 3 stories, 3 debates, no easy answers. If you disagree, that is the point. Leave a comment with your reasoning, not just your opinion. I will reply to the best arguments. This is Jimmy Unscripted. See you next week.
Late night city lights, no script, just life. Jimmy Unscripted.